Hello and welcome to Jaeger Hunt. So Jaeger Hunt is a game all about aspiring Jaeger pilots or mech pilots to get the Master Jaeger symbol. The only way that they can do that is by going to the specific planet that's filled with the relics of other mechs, strip down their own mech, add their parts to the piles, and then rebuild their mech while battling and finding their target. So how that's going to work is there's going to be several different rounds, and during each round there's 3 different phases. So you have the gathering parts phase, which you can see here on the left, the equipping and cooling phase, which you can see in the middle, and then the action phase, which you can see on the right. You should also notice that the first 2 phases are simultaneous, and the only part that's one at a time is the action phase, and that's just to keep the game quick. So each player is going to get dealt a character card, which I will just come down here and show you. So and for this standard version, everybody has 20 health, and there's no real difference between the mechs. That is an idea to add something to later, or potentially an expansion down the road. But so for instance, this character right here is playing as Mace, and their target is Ranger. So if we go and look, you can see Ranger is sitting across from them, and so our goal is to destroy Ranger before any other mech gets destroyed. And how we're going to do that is we're going to build up ours and use it to attack and stay alive and do a bunch of other abilities. There are 3 different types of cards in the game. There are tactical cards, which you can see here on the top left, weapon cards, which you can see here in the middle at the top left, and then support cards, which you can see at the bottom here at the top left. And what those are going to do is they're going to slot into different slots on your mech. So we have 1 tactical, 2 weapon, and 2 support. They're also going to offer you resources. So they have these keywords. So for instance, the weapon offers you 2 energy, energy being the keyword. And then tactical always offers both energy and coolant. So you have to pick between which of those you want. So you can either get 1 energy or 2 coolant. And then also for support, that always only offers coolant. So you can get 2 coolants. How that plays into the role of the game is that in order to activate a part that's attached to your mech or your Jaeger, is you have to have an energy token to spend. And the only way that you get those energy tokens is by junking another card. So if we have a card here in our new parts pile or our damaged parts pile, we can choose during the action phase to place that card up here in the junk pile. And then this one gives me 1 energy. So I get 1 energy token. I put it on my bot. And then let's say that this card is slotted in right here. And you'll do this before this phase, but I'll get to that. And we have the 1 energy token. This has a max energy of 1, which we don't have any on there, so we're good. And I can place that token on there, and then I can do the ability, which is what this text here says. So deals 6 damage, and then you and your target roll 1 dice. If your roll is equal or greater than their roll, then they lose 3 energy cards from one of their parts piles, and they get to choose energy cards, being any cards that have that energy keyword on them. And then additionally for coolant, so you can see now, and I'll just go ahead and place this up in one of our parts piles for the example. You can see now that we've hit the max on this card. It says max 1, so we have 1 energy token on it. The only way I can ever use this card again is if I take one of these cards that have the coolant keyword and I put it in the junk pile, and then that lets me completely cool down one of the other cards. So the game really comes down to you deciding what cards to keep during the gathering parts phase, which I'll cover in a second, and then slotting them into your Jaeger and deciding which ones to use for your economy to keep your Jaeger operating and being able to do abilities. Okay, so we're just going to kind of play through the first round to give you an idea of how it plays. So you'll draw 1 card from each of these piles like I've done here, and you'll put them in your hand to look at them, but I'll just lay them out here for us to review together. So you can see here I drew 2 support cards because this deck right here is random parts, and the other is 1 of each. So you're guaranteed at least 1 of each type whenever you draw, and then an extra bonus one. And then I'm going to make a decision on what card I want to keep. When you're making this decision, there's a couple things to look at. So first, what are the needs of my Jaeger. So any of these empty slots, if they stay empty and someone shoots that slot, then half the damage automatically goes to my core. So you want to fill in these slots as much as possible. And then the second thing to look at too is the abilities. So like for instance, this energy wave rupture, that's a pretty strong card as far as ability goes. It's going to really disrupt what other players can do. And then the last thing to look at is going to be the economy benefits. So for instance, this one is going to give me 1 energy or 2 coolant. This one's going to be 2 coolant. This one's going to be 3 coolant. This one's going to give me 2 energy. And again, that's going to cost me the card whenever I use it for that. So in this case, with these 4 cards, I'm going to keep the weapon. And I'm going to take these 3 cards. And I'm going to pass them face down to the next player. And then the player to your right will have done the same thing, in which case you'll have something like this. And we will look at what the offering is here. So again, we have a 1 energy, 2 coolant tactical card. We have a 2 energy weapon card. This one's for every energy token spent. You get 2 damage that you get to deal up to a max of 6. And then the weld service bot. So this one brings back health to your core. It's pretty useful. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the twin linked cannon, and I'm probably going to use it for my economy if I had to guess. So we'll just put that there. And then I will pass these 2 cards face down. They will have passed these 3 cards over to this player. And there you go. And then this person would have passed these 2 cards, or sorry, 3 cards to this player, and they would have picked one. So then I'll end up getting 2 cards passed to me. And you can see what my choices are here. I really want to get off to a fast start in this round. While the support card is really strong because it lets you potentially ignore an entire attack, I think in this example I will go ahead and keep this flamethrower here. Now when you only have 1 card left, instead of passing it, you're going to put it up here in the junk pile. And I'll just go ahead and do that with the rest of these cards as well. And there are certain cards that interact with the junk pile, so that does become relevant later on. So after you're done with your gather parts phase, you should end up with something like this, where you have, and this is just for the first round, where you should have 3 cards in your new parts pile. You don't have any cards in your damaged parts pile because nothing's been damaged yet, and you shouldn't have anything on your Jaeger yet except for the core because you haven't been able to slot anything yet. Moving to the equip and cool phase. So we really won't do any cooling this round, but we will do some equipping. So we're going to have to decide which ones we want to keep here. I'm probably going to keep these 2 and keep this one for the energy tokens. So I will take this. I have an empty slot here in the weapon section, and then I also have an empty slot here for a weapon. And so now those 2 parts are slotted into my Jaeger, and I don't need to do any cooling, so I won't worry about that part. Once everyone is ready and done, then we'll move on to the action phase. Once we're in the action phase, what we're going to do is it's going to be whichever player has the most coolant gets to go first, and then it will rotate around one at a time. So just for the example, we'll just have me go first, even though I don't have any coolant. Coolant being the key word that's up here where this energy word is currently. But so you can see here on this card, it says 2 energy. So if I decide that I want to spend it so I can place some energy tokens on my board, I will take this card and I will put it in the junk pile, aka junking the part, and I will draw 2 energy tokens. The energy tokens, then I get to decide where I want to place those. So this has a max of 1, so I'm not going to be able to place more than that. This has a max of 2, but I'll go ahead and place that first one right there. So, and I'm going to resolve these 1 activation at a time. So I can place them out like this if I want, but whenever I get to the rolling part, it will be 1 at a time. So I'll just wait. We'll do the energy wave rupture first, and we're going to go after our target, which is Ranger, who is sitting right across from us. And conveniently has no parts on their robot. And so I get to deal 6 damage. Now how I decide where that damage goes is you'll notice on your board there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on there. And you'll also notice some of this lovely dice. So you'll just go right here and you'll roll the dice. So I rolled a 4. So I'm going to deal 6 damage to their 4 slot, and we'll just give them a card just for demonstration. So I'm going to deal 6 damage to the 4 slot, which they... Okay, so that's 6 damage to that card. That card has 9 health, so it only has 3 health left, and then the part will be destroyed. And then none of that damage goes through to the core because they were able to absorb all of that damage with that card in the 4 slot. And then if we look at the rest of this, you and your target both roll a dice, so I'll give them a dice and roll it for them. Whoops. And they rolled a 6, and I rolled a 2. So I will not get to do the rest of this. It says if your roll is equal or greater than their roll. So I won't get to do the rest of that. But what I will get to do is take this second energy token. I will place it over here on my flamethrower, and I will roll 1 dice, deal that amount of damage to all parts on the enemy Jaeger except for their core. So I will roll a dice. And so I will get to deal 2 damage to every part that they have. And you'll notice that they only have 1 part slotted outside of their core. So since that's the case, any empty slot is going to deal half damage to the core. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. And each of those parts got 2 damage. So we'll end up dealing 4 damage to the core. So their core now has 16, and once it hits 0, then we win. And that is going to be my action phase. So once every player has done their action phase, then you will go back to the gather parts phase and for round 2. So I drew 1 card from each pile, and we'll look at these together. And we'll look at a couple things. So again, let's look at what our robot needs. We don't need weapons, except this one is damaged. We definitely need to cool these if we want to utilize them again. So this one offers us 2 coolants, which would let us cool both cards. And then we also have some empty slots. Our tactical and support slots are empty. So I think in this case, just for this 2 coolant, so I can cool both cards, I will put that one there, and I'll keep that. So we will pass these face down, and then the player next to us will have done the same thing, and we'll look at what they gave us. They gave us some more interesting cards. I want to be able to activate these cards again, so I'm going to keep that one, and we will pass these 2 to the next player, and then they will have passed 3 cards to the player next to us, which will then have picked one, so we end up getting 2 cards. And you can see here at our options, I'm going to go ahead and keep this tactical and actually put it in a slot, so that way I can take up the tactical slot position. And then this one is going to go into the junk pile. So round 2, equip and cooling phase here. We have 2 weapons here that are both have energy on them and they need cooled. This one I could play another energy token on without having to cool it. I'm probably just going to go ahead and cool it though, because this card allows me to get 2 coolant. So I'm going to take this card, I'm going to junk the part, and I'm going to remove all energy tokens from 2 of my cards. And then I still have these 2 cards. I'm going to go ahead and equip this card right here. And then here's an interesting choice. Let's say that I have this weapon and I like this weapon better than this energy wave rupture, or let's say that the energy wave rupture is weak and I know someone's going to get a turn before I do and they're probably going to go after it. What I can do is I can remove this card, put it in my damaged parts, which will remove all the damage, and instead replace it with this card. And then I can utilize this card just for the 2 energy. Or I can bring it back later and slot it back in, but it will automatically come onto the board with 5 damage because it has 6 health. So it'll only have 1 health when it comes back on the board. It doesn't matter how much it was damaged before. That will also be the case if you try to replace any parts that have energy tokens on them as well. Okay, so let's go to the action phase. Let's say that I have the most coolant again, so I get to do my action turn. And I'm going to go ahead and junk this part for 2 energy, so I get 2 energy tokens again. And I'm going to look at what I want to do. I know that this bot here now has a few spots filled, So they aren't as vulnerable to their core as they were before, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and just utilize this because I can deal 6 damage. That's pretty good. So I'm going to actually put both energy tokens on here at once because it says for every energy token spent, then I get to deal 3 damage. So I'll get to deal 6 damage, and then we'll determine where it's going by rolling. So it's going to go to the number 4 slot, which is convenient because that is one that we have almost already killed. So it has a total of 9 health, and then take away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So only 1 damage is going to get chewed up by this. And so then we'll have 5 damage go into the empty slot, which means 3 damage will go to the core because we're going to round up from half. And we did some more damage to their core. They lose that part, and all these damage tokens go back into the bag. And then we go around and let everybody do their turn again. But that should give you an idea of how the game is played. You'll continue to slot in parts on your Jaeger and continue to do action phases and gathering and equipping and cooling until one of the targets is destroyed. And then whoever target they were is going to be who wins. And I hope you enjoy. Thanks.